Hello, Cyndi Olin here with Create Your Own Luck and Love, and welcome to the Successful Woman's Guide to Meet and Marry Her Man. I am so excited to introduce my very special guest today, Atusa Razian.
Yes, yes. Good
Okay.
job.
Thank you. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Atusa, and you're just in for a real treat today. She is, clients describe, her as a game changer, guiding light, life changing. And she's a certified heart-centered transformational healer, shaman, spiritual teacher, and motivational speaker. She has an extensive experience and passion for helping individuals discover and tap into their true self. Ooh, I love authenticity, in order to unlock their potential to experience their desired life in terms of abundance, relationship, and personal well-being. She's been featured in Potomac Lifestyle Magazine, Entrepreneurs Herald, and the USA Today. So welcome, Atusa. I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, and our watchers and listeners are really in for a real treat today. Um, we're going to talk about triggers and trauma to get to that place of really, loving yourself. So, what you know, if a woman is triggered, um, what are your recommendations for supporting her on releasing? Because we oftentimes, so often in our bodies, we have these responses, and it can be, really challenging to not just go into response mode of, fight, flight, flee, shut down. Um, what are some of your recommendations for women that, especially they're dating and they want to connect and meet somebody amazing for them, and then all of a sudden they're going along and they get triggered?
Um, Great question. And the triggers actually happen for everybody. So
Yeah.
in that relationship, you have to also recognize that your partner, friend, whoever is sitting across from you, they're being triggered in their own way as well. And often these triggers that we have, they're rooted in some sort of childhood traumas. And I define trauma for my clients because they're like, well, I had a pretty okay life. My parents weren't divorced and I had a pretty good community. But still, even in those instances, when I go back, we find the traumas for them. And that's why I define trauma as anything that left an emotional marker in you as you were growing up. And that means it was of a emotional marker that made you change your behavior and patterns and the way you viewed your surroundings and your life. And most often, as you know, a lot of these triggers come from a place of fear and of a place of not, we don't love ourselves enough, and there's a big hole that we're trying to fill from the outside sources. And especially in relationship, we're always continuously looking for the person that's in front of us to fill up that void that's in us because we don't love ourselves as much. And also that fear that we have of the person leaving us, for us to be alone, and good things not lasting. So those are some of the main triggers. And in order for you to recognize your triggers, I always say, point the finger back at yourself, meaning like if you're noticing that you're getting angry right now, you're getting frustrated, you're getting sad, and you're pointing the finger back at your partner, well, it's his fault that, he did this, and I got angry. He said this, I got sad. He said this and did this, and I was upset, and, I wanted to go, take out the trash, and he didn't do it. So all those things, instead of pointing the finger out, point it back at yourself. And that means, okay, this person is doing whatever. I still have a choice in my behavior, in my responses, and in how I take information in. So, what about this situation is triggering me right now? Why am I getting angry? And if it's still going out, okay, he is doing whatever he's doing. Still, there is something inside of me that I have to go deeper. And if you keep pointing the finger back at yourself and asking why, you'll find those spots that, well, I don't feel loved in this moment. I'm scared of a good thing leaving me. I really need attention right now to feel supported. I don't feel like I have a voice and he hears me when he's doing this. So that's the main thing. And then when you find those spots, instead of, again, pointing back at the other person, speaking from your I place, meaning that I feel unsupported right now because when this happens, it triggers me to feel unloved and supported. So when you say it, communicate in this way, the other person is more willing to see it and hear because you're communicating how you feel, what's triggering you, and why you're being triggered, and what would help you in this situation to feel supported.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing you say. And just to repeat it back for the watchers and listeners is when you have that trigger, I love that you said just keep pointing it back to you, and no matter what somebody does that triggers you, there's still that pointing back to you, and then asking yourself the question, why am I feeling this way? What am I feeling? And then having the communication from a calm place and making it about you know
Mm-hmm.
where you're saying, I'm feeling like I'm not being very supported in this moment when I heard you say XYZ, right? Or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's so beautiful, and something that you shared that I feel is so poignant and important is around, oftentimes we're looking for someone else to fill up that empty hole of happiness. So I'd love to hear you speak into that. Like, how can a woman, come to a relationship or come to her dating life where she's feeling, perfect, whole, and complete, and not feeling like that other person is there to make her happy?
Um, Great question. And the response is, again, with those triggers, once you find those spots that you become aware of, okay, when these things happen, I go to a place that I'm not feeling loved and cared for. And when you see those spots, then you try to fill it up with you loving yourself. And oftentimes people say, well, I do loving things for myself. I do massages and I go for walks. Those are all still great. However, it's not really loving yourself still fully. So loving yourself means loving your whole body. Most women, and I think men do this as well, I've seen them, but mostly men, that when we look at the mirror, constantly we're finding faults. Oh, I wish my, under my eyes didn't have the bags. I wish my hair didn't look this way. I wish I didn't have these lines. I wish I lost a couple more pounds. I wish I didn't have these things. So we're constantly criticizing ourselves. And that's one of the things that we can stop in order to start loving ourselves. Instead of those words, being kinder and loving to ourselves when we're in front of a mirror. I love my eyes. I love my hair. And I often say, if there are parts that you cannot communicate with without criticizing it, then skip it. Don't even look at it. Don't even talk to it for now until you get to that point. Then go for those parts that you can easily say, I love you to. Like, I love my shoulders. Shoulders, not too many people can find fault in their shoulder. Or, I love my hands. I love my fingers. I love my fingernails. Whatever, as small as you can get it, that you can send love to. And really just, I love it. Like as if you're loving your kid, or you're loving your pets. We have unconditional love for our pets, for our kids, but we don't have that for ourselves. And also, then if on the outside you can't find those spots that you can easily say I love you to, then on the inside, there's so many organs and things on the inside, from your heart, your lungs, your pancreas, your intestines, the bones, muscles, tissues, everything, cells, nerves, that you can say I love you to. And finding love for this magnificent machine that is really working without any input from you. It's constantly working, it's constantly doing its job to do its best, even in the places that you're criticizing it, even in places that you're being mean to it. So, kind of stepping back and finding some gratitude and love for this physical machine that is carrying you in this lifetime, and being more gentle and kind to it. That's one of the best places that I tell people to find love for themselves. And the other thing is that always start getting used to hearing yourself talk. Meaning, if when I'm talking, am I using kind words to define myself? Am I criticizing myself often? Am I always saying sorry for things that really it's not my fault, things happen? Or am I just not being supportive of myself? And when you find those places, you become aware of it. First thing is stop doing it. And then as you get that opportunity to start to be more gentle and kind, and use gentle and loving words to define it.
I like that. So it's what I'm hearing you say too is being present to yourself, hearing the words that you're saying. And, also too, not just about yourself, but anyone else. Like
Yes.
how are you, how are you speaking of men? How are you speaking of the men that you're dating? Or, um, you know, and also I just love really looking into the mirror, looking into yourself, and just loving all parts of yourself. And what I'm hearing underneath that is just coming to this place of radical self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully said. Yes. Yes.
And just, having I feel like so many women are good at having compassion for others, that we can oftentimes forget ourselves and forget to fill up our own love cup. So um yeah, I love that piece that you so beautifully shared. um and so why is it important to release this trauma, like release the triggers and trauma?
So part of the work I do is going back to those ages that the trauma started and healing it and releasing it at those ages. And I give exercises for people so that they reprogram those behaviors that they built up at those certain ages. And the reason that's important, when you do that, your triggers are not there anymore. That's the first thing, or the trigger, you're triggered less. And you become more and more aware of the way you're speaking about yourself, the way you're reacting. And that way, one of the other important things that I always tell people is that you always have choice. So you have choice in your reaction, your behavior, what you want, what you don't want. So there's always choice. And when your awareness expands and you're coming from a place that you're not triggered and you can see things more clearly, then that way you can make your choices more from a place from your heart, from your intuition, from your internal guiding system, rather than making choices based on reaction and based on your triggers, per se. So that's why it's important to release those triggers and release those past traumas, um, because then your life becomes easier and it becomes about your choices and more heart-centered choices as well.
Um, when you say, like, going back to those times and releasing those trauma points, right? Um,
Mhm.
what are some of the exercises that you have women do around the release?
The release, honestly, it's a process that we go together. It's not sort of an exercise. It's a process where I connect with their energy child at a certain age. I communicate with that energy. I see it clearly and I see what was happening and what were the emotions at that point. And then I do different modalities to connect the client with that child so we're all on the same page. Because oftentimes the other thing that happens is that, again, we say, well, wasn't that bad? Or, we
Right.
try to say, well, now that I look at it, my mom did this her best. We're not here to blame the parents, but we're also, there's an and there, that we have to respect and honor the feelings and the emotions that that kid had at a certain time.
Yeah.
And by allowing that part of us to speak up about how they felt and ask that part of us, okay, now how do you want to do things differently? And sort of giving the tools both to that kid and the adult and bringing them together releases it. And then the exercises, honestly, after that point that I give, they call it homework. It's just home exercises, but
Yeah.
it's more in terms of affirmations and meditations that help with the reprogramming. Because once you release it, think about like a plant, if it had a strong root, you could have taken the root out, but it's going to take some time for it to completely die out. And that's why the mantras and the affirmations help with that reminder, the constant reminder, I'm not in that space anymore. I'm in this space now, and truly believing it. And the reason it works together is like, you know, affirmations, I've heard people say this all the time. Well, I can say I'm safe all the time, but if I don't feel it, it really just becomes annoying to say, well, I'm safe all as well. And they're right, because that kid part of them is still sitting there in fear and they don't feel safe. So you got to make that kid feel safe first. And then when you add the affirmation to it, then it all works together.
Mm. Yeah. That that I do something that's a little different than that, but it's kind of similar, that it's but just, you know, even pulling out the root. And it's like, having that added support system to set you up for success
Mm-hmm.
in the future. It's kind of like, you know, maybe you want to lose 10 pounds and you can, and you've had trouble just losing that weight, but there's
Mm-hmm.
a association there from childhood and you get rid of that. But if that's not coupled with some support around it, then it's it it may not have a chance to grow in a
Grow.
healthy way. Yeah.
Exactly. I agree. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm the support system for
Right.
them until sort of they graduate.
I love
But
it.
yeah, the support is really a big deal. I agree.
Yeah, that's so. Um, so when a woman does, release that trauma and she's in this place where she's open to abundance and, um, really being able to connect with her true self. If you have, advice for the watchers and listeners out there to, what are some of the ways that a woman can, really connect to her authenticity? Because I find, and I'm sure that you see this a lot too, that women kind of struggle a lot of times with becoming a chameleon, especially with dating or,
Mhm.
being in relationship where we want to be nurturers or go into people pleasing mode too.
The first thing I always say, throw the rule book out
Mm, love it.
because there really isn't a rule book. And what's good for me is not good for you or the other person. So you have to set your own rules and your own guidelines for what is it that you want. You are going to be the creator of your life. You're creating the type of relationship you want and knowing why you want those things. So and the other, oftentimes when it becomes to relationships, people, well, they say they have a list of the person they want, but then when I go into those things, the reason behind them, and when they start opening it, some of those reasons, again, it becomes part of the triggers that they're trying to fix something for those kids inside of themselves, that they want to feel safe and they want this. And when those triggers are gone, the list gets cleaner and clearer. And when you are setting your own guidelines for the type of relationship, meaning that there are people that may want a very serious relationship, that they have specific things that they desire because it's good for their life and how they want to live, and yours might be different. So don't follow the crowd. Set your own guidance, set your own rules for what type of relationship you want, why you want that relationship. And honestly, once you start loving yourself and getting rid of the triggers and finding that peace and comfort and keep going inside rather than going outside, the relationship happens so much naturally. The people that you want, the type of person you want comes into your life, and things just flow much easier and better. And one other advice I have is that even if you have a list of why you want a certain type of relationship, be open, at least for the time being, that all those things that you're looking for, you may be receiving it from other sources that you're not paying attention to. Um, Meaning, don't make that one person in charge of providing, being one and all for everything that you desire and you want.
Right.
Allow those desires and needs to be fulfilled in whichever form or shape, or as many forms and shapes as possible. And then when you open that up, again, you'll see that, hey, I am being supported in this way. I'm getting love in this way. And then again, it becomes easier to find that relationship you want, because you're not, first of all, narrowing your vision. Your list gets cleaner and clearer. The things you want becomes clean, and it just naturally then flows to you.
I love that. So what I heard you say, it's like, you know, really looking for the sources in your life where you're being provided with the things that you desire in partnership, and
Mm-hmm.
then also reflect that in your life, and it becomes so much easier to then bring it, and it's just naturally attracted. It's like a magnet. So
Exactly.
it's just
Exactly.
beautiful. Well, I could speak to you about this stuff all day long. And
Same here. I love talking about this stuff.
it's so fun. And it's just, yeah, there's so many layers to it. And I know that you also have a complimentary gift to share with the audience. Would you care to share that right now?
Yes, I was going to offer, if they want just a 20-minute consult on just going over what could help them, that they could contact me. They can go on my website, and all my information is there, my email, through social media, text, email, they can contact me.
Excellent.
And
Well, we'll definitely put the link right below so they can contact you. And if they're interested in connecting, learning more, doing that inner work, healing, excavation, then absolutely. Well, thank you, Atusa, for being here with us today.
thank you, Cindy.
I know this talk has helped so many women out there that needed to hear this and felt it land, and know they can be in their own power to create the kind of love that they so deeply desire and are worthy of. So
Exactly. Thank you for doing this work, and thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
of course, of course. And to everyone out there, from my heart to yours, here's to you, and receiving all that love that you're so worthy of creating and receiving. Till next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.